You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and with me always are my good friends.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And Shannon G in Mesa AZ.
And we'd like to welcome you to our podcast. We appreciate your patronage. We want to just ask that you share and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We always appreciate listeners, sharing our stuff. We have a Facebook page, so yeah, jump on there, and it's the Park Flyer Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. Shannon does a pretty good job keeping that up to date. And go to youtube.com and look up youtube.com and look up the podcast, or you can go to our website and find old episodes too. We're on almost all of the podcast crawlers, so if you're Apple or Amazon or Spotify or any of those, just click on it, give us a like, and let us know how we're doing. This week is kind of one of those weeks. We've had a couple of things that kind of happened, and first things first, Shannon received a package in the mail.
Yes, I did. It was a very small package, but it was packed a lot.
It was packed a lot. That was actually the smallest box I had, so I didn't really have too much of a choice.
So I have an older L39. It's the old Fly, and I've had this thing for. I've had it for 10 years, and the guy before me had it for a couple of years. It's like 13 years old, but it's a beautiful airframe, and I've got new decals for it. It's still a very viable airframe. I've got lots of stuff for it, so I'm like. The one drawback was the wingtip light lenses were just browned out, blacked out, whatever you want to call it. They looked horrible. I'm like, hey, Mike, can you? I sent him the dimensions and the shape. I'm like, hey, can you print up something? Because he's just the master with printing, obviously. With Mandalorian, Captain America.
He actually used his resin printer for aircraft stuff.
RC, yes. Yeah. So he sent me. So I gave him all this stuff, and he put them together and polished them up and sent me 6 of them. I think 6.
I did.
I stuck one on, and they fit perfect. Absolutely perfect. So I got some spares if anything happens.
If one falls off,
but one falls off or gets chunked up, because those wingtips will hit the ground sometimes.
Sure,
chipped up. But thank you.
That's pretty bad.
Really, I was like, that's the one thing I was like, now I can go full steam and get this plane back in the air.
Sure. So what are you going to use? What are you going to use to attach them to the foam?
Glue of some kind.
Obviously.
I don't know.
Are you open to suggestions?
I am. I'm definitely open to suggestions.
E6000.
E6000. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not the 5.
Not 5. They sell it. It's in a silver. If you just go to Home Depot, you can pick it up. It's in a tube. I think Gorilla sells one very similar. What's that?
Quick Rip.
Yeah, Quick Rip. Actually, E6000 is better. It has a little bit of flexibility to it. It hardens. Okay. It's not one of those glues that instantly hardens, though. So you're going to have to tape it on and let the glue dry. Okay. But the good news is
foam safe?
Quick Rip.
It is foam safe.
Okay, because this is old. This is the old EPS.
This is the
foam.
EPS.
Oh.
Then
go test it first.
Yeah, test that first.
Yeah, this is old school.
Okay, yeah. If it's EPP, it shouldn't be a problem, or if it's any other type. But
EPO.
Yeah, but the E6000 is actually like a silicone base, and so when you put it in there, it creates a really strong, bond. But if you ever needed to remove it, you just slice into the E6000 with your knife, and it just peels right off. And then once you get the lens off, you can just peel the old E6000 comes right off.
Okay.
So that's actually what holds on a lot of the stuff on the turbines. It holds in everything from, I've put E6000 on fuel tanks, on parts in the back and, under the carriage and doors or whatever. E6000 can hold those on. Occasionally, matter of fact, on my gear doors, I'll put E6000 on the inside and then put it against the block and then screw it in. So if one of the screws falls out, I don't lose my gear door. It's still attached.
Gotcha.
And if I ever need to get the gear door off, I just, like I said, take a really thin hobby knife and just kind of cut around it, and it just pops right off. It surprisingly it comes out not a problem. You could tug on it and eventually get it to come apart, but it seems to run pretty well. But yeah,
Okay.
if it's an EPS, I would test it on that first.
I'll
I
double
know,
check.
yeah.
I know it's older, and I usually have to use like foam safe glue on it, whereas newer planes you don't have to be as
Yes.
cautious with that.
That's
so.
it's EPS, right?
Yeah, that's the
I
beer,
think so,
beer
yeah.
cooler. That's like the
Beer cooler
styrofoam.
foam. Yeah.
Yeah, beer cooler styrofoam.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it could be the other way because it's right in the cusp of when some of the planes were EPS and then they were going back to EPO or
Gotcha.
EPP. So I'll double check. But thank you.
Yeah, double check.
I will definitely look into
Yeah,
that.
it's not a
Yeah,
problem. I
but
mean,
definitely
luckily,
double check that.
yeah, definitely double check. You don't want your wing falling off.
I'm melting.
yeah.
My
Actually, believe it or
wing is
not,
melting.
one of the guys that I know, right? One of the guys that I had at the park, he had one of those. What do you call those things, Jay? That have the little motors up front. They're like a delta wing, and it's got the twin tails. I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head, but he
Zaggy?
had one. What is it?
A Zaggy?
No, that's a wing.
Oh.
This one's one of the E-Flight ones that has the two little bitty motors, and there's no
The Delta
there's like
Ray?
no elevator, or
Is that
it
the
uses
Delta
the
Ray?
motors to turn it. It may be the Delta Ray. I think
Yeah, I think so.
that probably sounds what it is. So he crashed the Delta Ray and the wing came off. So he did exactly that. He took some glue, he put it in there, he stuck it together. He didn't think anything of it. He went out and flew it, and the thing just obliterated in the air. And anyway, he was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what happened." And I walked over to it and I picked it up, and the foam, I could stick my thumb like Jello right through the middle of the wing. And I go, "Did you? What kind of glue did you use on this?" He goes, "Oh, I just used, whatever, some kind of a cement glue." And I was like, "Did you test it on here first?" Because when he put it together, it just started eating the inside of the glue out because
Right.
it had nowhere to get the heat to give the heat off. Right, it has to give that heat
Yep.
and outgas. And so anyway, I felt bad because I was like, I don't know if we can fix this or not. But what I wound up doing is whipping up some Gorilla Glue and sticking it in there, and it filled in all the gaps. So we wound up making it work. I like Gorilla Glue because it's a gap filler too. So it kind of, that hollow spot in the wing, it just kind of filled it in there. And it didn't really come through the wing, but the wing was really like a sponge, So when I put that in there, it made it a little tougher. So, but I lucked out. I worked really hard on my L39 to get the big turbine lenses up, and so when Shannon sent me the little lenses, I was like, "Oh yeah, I've printed a crap ton of these actually, this size." And you sent me the dimensions. I just dropped it into Tinkercad and printed it out. They weren't really the highest quality. I would have probably spent more time on it, but I sent him those so he could say yes, they will work, or no, they won't. And then if you want something that's much more clear, I'll spend a lot more time on it if you want.
Well, for the size, like you can't, unless you get down there with a microscope or magnifying glass, you're not going to know if they're crystal clear or not. I mean,
they are clear. It's just that they have waves in them and stuff.
Yeah,
and honestly, with little elbow grease, you can sand all that out of there if you wanted to. But it takes a lot of work.
It'll buff right out.
Yeah, it'll buff out.
It'll buff right out.
Well, it was a pleasure doing it. It was kind of fun, and I actually had them sitting here for quite some time, and it was hard for Shannon and I to we'd never had an opportunity. I was either working and he was doing something else, but I finally was like, you know what, I'm just going to mail them to you because you're across town, and so I think I mailed them out, and you got them the next day. So yeah, it worked out great. And then I have Amazon packages coming all the time, and that was the smallest Amazon box I could find. I thought about sending them in the envelope.
Box this big,
Yeah. No, I thought about sending them in the little envelope, that you get at the post office, but then I didn't want them to get crushed or broke or anything, so I didn't do all that. But well, that's awesome. Today's episode as well is kind of talking about Maiden Flights. For those of you that have been with us a while, Alaska Mike, AK Mike, he flies at the Electric Festival with us, and I think my birthday and his birthday are about the same. And for our birthdays, Jay sent us both some airframes. I have not had a chance to get mine because I'm various repairs in stages, and I just haven't had a chance to. I put mine kind of put it all together, but I haven't had a chance to build it out. But Mike, on the other hand, did get his and did have a chance to build it out. And so I think I'd like kind of to go over a little bit of the things that he was talking to us about, and a couple of things that maybe would help you
Yeah, it didn't go as
if you got
smoothly as we
something.
thought.
It did not go as smoothly as we thought. And some of those things are not necessarily blaming Mike for any of it, but it's just things that I thought they would bring up. Not that I'm, harping on anything that he did wrong, but I think that there are some things probably that we can discuss, that maybe we have different opinions on, and we can just kind of share our opinions on it for the remainder of the time. But
Sounds good.
first things first, I will tell you that the models came with 0 directions. And
Yeah.
that's most of the time for someone that's a builder. You can put stuff together, but uh typical things from China, they sometimes come with multiple parts for multiple airplanes. And in Mike's particular case, he got 2 sets of or he got 4 rods total, 2 thin fiberglass rods and 2 long tubular carbon fiber rods. And so
Beefy.
he
Yeah.
was, yeah, they're really
Yep.
beefy. And so he was asking us, hey, where do these rods go? And so Jay and I, just looking at the photos he was taking to send it to us, we were giving him suggestions, well, maybe it goes here, maybe it goes here. And finally I called him and I was like, all right, is there no place to put any of those rods? And he's like, no. I said, maybe they're for a bigger size, right? Because I went online, it looked at the airplanes, and it did seem like there was some other airplanes in that family. It's called the Polaris, right, Jay? I think it's the
Yeah,
one
it's
that
a
he got.
Polaris. It's a
Yeah.
copy
Yeah,
of a
so it's a
Polaris.
Polaris, so it's a copy of it, but it's like a land and sea, and it doesn't have any wheels or anything. It'll just take off like a sled. And so he was talking about cutting, rails for it, or holes to put in the wings to stiffen the wings and everything. And I was like, man, if this is going to be a water airplane, I wouldn't be putting any holes in it. It's molded to be in the water. If you start drilling holes, you're going to have to fill those. It's going to just cause problems. So I said, I think personally that those are for a bigger size. And when they create these kits, they just do a, massive amount of shipment, and they just go, okay, here, whatever rods go in the box first, and then they just ship the rods down. The next guy throws this airplane in or this airplane. And I told him, I said, my wife ordered
Yeah. Yeah.
a shelf, off of Amazon, and it came with a blister pack that had like 10 times more screws and nuts and bolts. And I'm like, where do all these go? Because they were labeled like 1 through Q, or A through Q, and in the directions it only used A, D, and E, and
A
that was
through
it.
C.
And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And I'm like, where's the rest of this go? But I think it's just because it's cheaper just to create that and throw it in the box, and then use what you need. So in his particular case, I think the fiberglass, the smaller ones, they fit actually in a slot that the
Yeah,
airplane had on the belly of it. Mm-hmm. So
Yep, it definitely did.
just kind of getting this process started, that was the biggest thing right away, is that with no directions, sometimes it's a little more difficult, but you have to kind of go with what makes sense. Not that he couldn't have cut, into it and created some more stiffer wings or whatever, but I think we kind of figured it out. And when I talked to him, he's like, yeah, that's the best explanation I think I've had so far. And so we kind of settled on that. It may have been for a different airplane or different airframe. So he put the thing together, and then decided to go maiden it. And that's where kind of things took a turn for the worse. First thing, I think he went out to the field that he normally flies out, and he maidened it, but it got, I don't know, Jay, you might remember the story a little bit better, but it got away from him,
No.
or it got too
So
far out?
he no. So basically, he went out to his paramotor field.
That's
He
right.
does paramotoring.
Paramotoring.
Paramotoring. I'm not saying that right, but anyway,
He's a
motoring.
paramotor guy.
Paramotoring.
So he went out to that field. So it's good enough to. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering now because you said the field was pretty rough, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh well, I'm thinking it's just as smooth as any other field that we normally fly at, but I guess it's a little bit more rural.
Mhm.
And it has a couple of dips and bobs in it, and so one of the things that since you don't have any instructions, therefore we weren't sure of the CG, right? So the good news is the reason I got him this kit was because he has a similar plane
Mhm.
in his inventory, and we've beaten that thing. You know, he's definitely got his dollars worth out of that plane. That plane was, I mean,
Right.
quite literally was put together with string and has fiber
Chewing
rods
gum.
going through it and tacks and chewing gum and it's had field repairs, cement.
Sure.
It it led a
Right.
hard life. And
Sure.
so once again, if you've been with us for a while, there's been a couple of episodes where we talked about some fabulous crashes with various models of this plane that Mike's gone through. So this
Mhm.
is like his third or fourth iteration of this plane. And I was like, well, the last plane that we put together, I mean, even though, like I said, we've been repairing it and, fixing it, is even though its body was broken, a lot of thought went into how to put it together and make it work really, really well.
Mhm.
Case in point, like one of the problems with the plane was when you took off, the rudder would catch the ground since it's sliding on its belly to take off. It would catch the ground, and with the foam hinge, it basically was ripping the rudder off. You know what I mean? So it'd land on
Oh,
the
right.
rudder. It hit the rudder all the time, hitting the ground. And so I'd put a rod, a cut of fiberglass rod or carbon rod, put it in the back to be as a protection the for the rudder, so the rudder would never contact the rod, contact the ground again. The rod would prevent it, kind of like a wheelie bar. Think of it
Mhm.
like that in the back. We had like for the bottom of the plane, since it's skidding along the ground like that, I think we took a 2-liter bottle, took a heat gun, cut it in half, flattened it out, and then we glued it on the bottom so that it would be it would be a skid plate for the bottom of the plane, and it worked fabulous, right? So we had modified a couple of things that had a fantastic motor in it, had plenty of power, that kind of thing. So we kind of figured out all those things, and once again, I was kind of scratching my head because I figured, well, I'll be able to pull up the CG somewhere. But I couldn't find anything because Mike was like, oh, there's no instructions. I can't find how to, put the thing together. And then he goes, well, I
Right.
guess since it's a copy of the same plane, well, usually the CG's right at where um,
Wing
where there's
spar is.
not a break. No, not where it's not where the wing spar is. It's where, since the bottom of it's like a boat. Oh, it's the step. It's the step.
Oh,
When
yeah,
first
yeah,
you come
yeah.
up on step,
Right.
like,
Right.
yeah.
Mhm.
So there's a step built into
Mhm.
if you had a regular plane, if you notice there's like a little step, it goes, if you look along the bottom of the float, it comes down, then it kind of makes a step goes deeper. Well, the CG is normally right at that, where that step break, where it makes that stair step.
Mhm.
And sure enough, so that was the best place to take a wag for that. So, it's usually 10 millimeters either way, either direction of that. So that's basically where Mike, went with it, and he went heavy, just in
Mhm.
case. So he got out there and, took off. And although the field's good for paramotoring, I can't say that word for some weird reason.
Motoring.
It wasn't
Motoring.
motoring. It still has a few trees out there. It still has a couple of hazards out there. And I guess when he took off, he hit a bump or dip, and the plane went in the dip. And when it came out of the other side, or of the little dip or whatever, it launched the plane straight up in the air. And the plane took
Huh.
off straight on the air, and um, he wasn't quick enough on the controls, and it went up, it stalled, and boom, came down, and kind of hurt the plane a little bit. I think it broke a little bit of the wingtips off or something. So that day was kind of, skewed, I think.
Mhm.
So he had to come back, glue on the wingtips. It broke a prop. He didn't bring any other props out with him, which is really odd because it's kind of hard to break a prop on that plane since it sits up above the body.
Right.
But he broke the prop, had to get, and so he came back out the next time he came out. So I think the next way that went with the story, the next, after he repaired the plane, put a new prop on it, and then a couple of days later, I know, we were talking about, he had to go to a different field that was smoother, it was a little smoother,
Mhm.
to try to take the plane off. So he decided he was going to try a new area. And this is one of the things where we kind of get at, because we used, when I was back up in Alaska, we used to go pirate a bunch of places to go fly. We'd use Walmart, a lot that was next to Walmart. We used to fly at schools, things like that. We'd go and, we'd use those places to fly. So Mike had a place in mind, and it wasn't at his old, at his field that he goes and he flies at, but so it was a new place that he went to go fly, and this time, he double checked the CG, put a little bit further, and he was actually able to get the plane off, and he was flying it, and he's like, "Yay, he's flying it!" Now, once again, this is my my summation of what happened. I think Mike got the plane out further than it should have been. I think he, was excited, took off full power. Although this plane is bright orange, the whole plane is bright orange, neon orange, I guess. It still got further away from him, and even though he could see the plane, he couldn't tell the orient. He knew he was in like a right turn type of thing. Right. And I guess it was a little blustery that day, and the plane got blown, and unbeknownst to him, the plane was actually flying upside down, I guess, or it was in a severe turn.
Wow.
And so when he went to pull back to get some more altitude, well, the plane dove straight to the ground and crashed into some trees. Well, he's like, okay, the plane went down over there. He goes walking over there, and there's a body of water, I guess a river or whatever, a river or stream. So he had no way across it. So he had to kind of jump in his car, drive around the neighborhood, get on the other side of the river, try to figure out where it was. And he had another person that he met or whatever out there that was flying a drone, and that guy was out there looking for his plane, but he just called us up and he's like, "It's gone." And we're like, what's gone? He's like, "My plane's gone." And we're like, you lost a bright orange plane? How'd you do that? So
I was so mean. I told
that part
I was
funny.
I was so mean. I sent that text out that said, "What were you flying against, a bright neon orange background? I mean, how do you lose that thing? It's like, bright orange," which I was saying it in jest, but it was kind of a mean statement for me.
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of history there. One thing we've always teased Mike about is that he is a minimalist. He doesn't like to put too much stuff on his plane, and we're always like, well, why don't you put a stripe on that, or so you can tell which one's the left or right wing, or why don't you put a stripe so you can see the tail or whatever. And he's just like, yeah, I did put a stripe bar, I did put some something so you could tell what's tape on there, and you look and we're like, well, what is it? He's like, this line. Just like this little piece of tape just stuck right on the top, and I'm like, really you're gonna see this one piece of
it's
tape
like pencil
on the top?
Pen.
We're like,
I had to laugh.
We're like, yeah. He's like, oh yeah.
I had to laugh when he was in Alaska because it was an all white EPP foam airplane, and he went to go maiden it in the snow. And I'm like, dude, you got to have something on there that causes you to be able to differentiate it from the snow. So we do hammer him pretty hard on the coloring thing. It's pretty funny, but he's gotten much better at it, I will have to say. He's done a really great job. When I had him down at the house and we built some airplanes down here, he actually got into some airbrush and did a pretty good job on the a couple of his airplanes. So, but and kind of picking up where Jay was talking, one of the things that I was thinking in my head, and it's funny because the three of us talk, and sometimes I'll get a text message from Mike, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm at a new field," and first goes through my mind is, why are you maidening a flight at a new field? You are not familiar with the field. So, go back to the field that you're familiar with. Maybe that will, at least you can, the area that you're going to fly. But in this particular case, he's like, "Oh, I found this field closer to my house. I'm going to go out there and maiden it." And I'm like, did you check it out? Or are you just walking out there and just going to, toss it up? Which we were just texting. And, I hate that because you only get a part of it. You don't get the full story. And then you're kind of like, I'm like, what the heck, And then next text I get, because I'm working, the next text I get is, "Oh, lost it. It's gone," and I'm like, okay, was this field like the size of, my front yard, or was this field like a football field? Or nope, lost it in the trees. And I'm like, so you maimed it with tree, all these things are going through my head. And, so I'm texting Jay and I'm like, is he being serious? Did he lose the plane? I mean, it's gone. It just flew away. And Jay's
serious.
like, oh no, it crashed in some trees. And I'm like, okay, I got to go. I'm working. I'll call him later. And I did.
There's a
I did get
swamp
to
and
call
there's
him.
he has to cross.
Yeah, but there's a swamp,
has
and
to
so
cross the
I'm only
lake.
getting feet of that. So it was pretty funny because
Shrek found the plane.
yes,
Donkey.
yeah. Well, the good news is that I did call him when I finally got done with my work and had some spare time, and I gave him a call and I was like, hey, what's the story? And he said, yeah, that he had gone out and driven to the other side of this little waterway and had been walking. There was a bike trail, and he was able to follow the bike trail. And he I think he marked where he was standing on his GPS.
He used the telemetry from his radio. Radio too.
And then so I think he marked where he was in the field or where the airplane he thought it was, and then he used the telemetry.
Yes, on his phone.
And as he walked away, the signal got weaker, and as he walked towards it, the signal got stronger. And so he went all the way around. It was kind of headed back towards that little dot on his GPS, and it kept getting stronger and stronger. And sure enough, he got to part of the bike trail, and it was hanging from the wires way up in the tree. But it just looked like it broke the tail off. He sent some photos of it and goes, "You're not gonna believe this, but I found it." So now the dilemma is how to get it down from the tree. Because it's not like he can just. It's a tall tree. I mean, it doesn't really have a whole lot of branches to climb. It's one of those that doesn't have anything, and there's just a real tall canopy. And so Jay and I were sending suggestions. Get a rope or get a cinder block and chunk it up there. Or
Call
something,
the fire department.
Yeah, I don't know if the fire department would have got his plane out of the tree, but
he could have said it was a cat. Oh, cat's going. But there's a plane too. Can you?
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, the cat was there, but you guys waited. You guys took so long to get here. Can you get my plane while you're here? Yeah. That'd be awesome. But that was one of the things in my head that when he was telling the story that I kind of was talking to Jay about this, and I was like, yeah, it's a good podcast episode to talk about Maiden Flights. And when you're gonna maiden the flights, because Mike was telling us that he's like, yeah, I'm just not a good maiden guy. He just doesn't do it enough, and he gets. I think he's slightly nervous, and doesn't really think about everything. Because like Jay and I've maidened tons of planes, and I show up to the field with tools, extra batteries, extra props, everything that I'm going to need in case something happens. Glues, that way if I maiden it and it breaks or I crash it or something, then I can put it all back together and redo it. Where Mike went out there and maiden it and then had nothing and went back home. So it's a good, not that I'm telling him how to do it. You can do what you want. But if you're listening, that's one of the things, if you don't maiden airplanes on a regular basis, that this is a good idea. Secondly is the CG that Jay talked about, right? Is that, it's always better to start with a little bit forward CG than a little bit after, and then just kind of move it back. We had an episode back in our files if you want to go check it out, but it was on how to find a CG, and it's about a third of the way from the leading edge. It's a good place to start, good gouge. And then, the other thing too is what happens if you lose an airplane like Mike did, and then, if I'm going to go look for my airplane, I need to have rope, a ladder, a boat, something, something. If the airplane where I find it, and I'm not just looking.
Because when he said, "Oh, I couldn't get through the swamp to get to the area," and I'm like, "Swamp." Well, now if you're talking that you're next to a lake, man, now you need a fishing pole. Typically when I'm around the lake, or with rowboat or whatever. But
waders,
at least a minimum, a fishing pole, waders or something, so you can start wading through places, right? Anyway, I came up with just a couple of things just off the top of my head that from the last episode where I lost my my glider,
right?
Because I once again, and this is a typical thing that you're all excited, you want to go fly, and then boom, you lose the thing. I lost the second, not on a maiden, but I only had the plane, had 2 or 3 flights on it, and then I lost it because I was goofing around. But anyway,
right.
But Mike had the same problem. He lost the plane, and he goes, "Oh man, I didn't even put my name in it." And I was like, "Really? After we just, you were just out here two weeks ago, we lost the plane because
Right.
not because I didn't put a name in it, but if it got found, it didn't have my name or phone number, so somebody could call and go,
Right.
'cause somebody would have found that plane walking along the trail and went, oh, look, there's a perfectly, somebody left a perfectly good bright orange plane right there. Oh boy.
Right.
Plus, we're supposed
So
to for the FAA.
like you
and
said,
Right, exactly. That's
ANA,
what I was thinking.
yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. But but sometimes you don't. I don't think about it, right? Because I'm flying out here by myself.
no.
You know,
Add it to
but
your
you're right.
checklist,
It's what
folks.
we're supposed.
it's true.
I know that's what you're supposed to do, and you could definitely see here in this particular situation had he had it put in there. Not that it would have helped anybody because they didn't. He found it before that, but it definitely would have increased his odds to getting his plane back with just that simple thing.
It could have gone
putting
either way.
a name and a phone number. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, not gotten it. But yeah, so, but between that and also, when you want to maiden your plane, you want to keep it close, folks.
Right.
You may get, you want to slow down, keep it close to see what the plane's doing. And I really think that Mike got the plane a little too far out from him, and where he did put some tape on the plane this time. And once again, I go, he put some stripes on the bottom of it, and I go, is that blue painter's tape? And he's like, yeah, see, that blue and the orange really contrasts. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was thinking you're going to put some black tape or something on the bottom, and he's like, oh, I don't have time to put all that on. And, and I'm like, okay, it only takes a minute or two to put it on. I don't, I'm just going to go out and maiden. Why go through all that, effort to put all that stuff on?
Right.
I'm like, okay.
Well,
So
it's been
definitely
some valuable lessons for sure.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I think I lost orientation on my glider, because it was teeny tiny and I had nothing on the plane. Now, of course, it looks fabulous. You don't see it there in the back up there. It's all rainbow colors now, boy, man.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely, if you're flying it and you lose track of it, you can definitely see it now.
Yeah.
It may not always be possible, but you should always have somebody else with you when you do a maiden too. That's another thing
that's
I
another
would
good
highly recommend.
Yeah.
Because if it also depending on your flight skills, if you've got someone who's a little higher level flight skills, it could maybe help you out. That's a huge thing.
Or just trimming the plane, right?
As you,
let's say you have your hands full.
Yep. Just hey,
they can reach over and start
click
trimming.
A right trim, click a right, click up, click it down,
Mhm.
whatever. Just that little bit helps. If you got there by yourself, it's like you're in no man's land. Sometimes it's like I don't know what this plane's going to do. Even though you think you've got everything set up 100% on there, just having a second set of eyes can make all the difference. I think.
I agree with you. I don't think
absolutely.
That's bad advice at all.
The good news is he did go back out there, folks. He went to an actual RC field.
Yep.
Went out there and he was able to successfully maiden the plane. He repaired it, put the tail. The damage to the plane that last time, he ripped the tail off, but it broke right at the glue joint for keeping the. If you've ever seen a Polaris before, where the pylon goes with the engine pylon. That was kind of like a pod thing that was a separate unit, and that broke off clean right at the glue joint. So he was able to put it back in, re-glue it. So, everything worked out. No great damage. But he went out this last time, was able to I cannot speak today. Successfully had 2 or 3 flights on the plane. Yes, those hard words, and he went out and he was able to maiden the plane, figure out the CG, was able to flip it over on its back to make, see how, to make sure the CG was right. And he had a successful flight, and didn't lose it. And was able to come back and everything. So
true.
Yeah.
And we're excited because, it's a fun airplane and he's kind of got it where it's flying well now. So we're all excited to see what he does with the tape or the paint or the markers and hear about, more of him flying. Because the last couple airplanes, I think he likes the Pitts and the UMX stuff, but I think he was really discouraged when this airplane went down. And that's always troublesome, when you're trying to do what you this fun hobby, and then things don't go right, and you get real discouraged. Mike was a trooper. Even though we kind of bashed him around a little bit, he took it in stride, and then kind of just pulled his suspenders up and said, "Okay, screw you guys, I'm going to go out and find it." So he did do all that, and it turned out like he actually got it done. So it's good, a good end to the story. Good moral of the story is that he just never stopped trying. He it didn't work the first time, but he didn't quit. And he put up with our rash of ribbing, but it's typical Mike. If he wants to do it, he can get out there, and he's always been really good at just saying, no, let me try it. Let me at least try it a couple times. If I can't do it, then you can do it. But where some guys are just like, yeah, no, just do it for me.
We support him.
We do, yeah. And he's a great addition, and it's always fun to have him flying around.
But maybe we should send him a copy of TLC Waterfalls. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Yeah, no doubt.
Rivers and
funny.
Lakes that you're used to.
Exactly.
RC fields.
RC fields are used to. Well, the good news is we're going to have to talk to him again because he said he found an RC field that was much closer to his house that I don't think he knew was there before. So that'll be.
We should all go there.
Yeah, we should show up at the RC field. So we'll have to get some more information on that for those guys that are in Dallas, our listeners in Dallas. He's down there, but yeah, I think that was a lot of good educational. We're going to get Jay a subscription to Education Rock. For those of you under the age of 30, you won't know what that means, but it was a
junction.
Yes, that's exactly
Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock. That's what it is. Schoolhouse Rock. So he can get his vocabulary.
Get your adverbs.
Yes,
here.
Trying to figure out these big words for him. So, but anyway, unfortunately, we're out of time. But we sure have enjoyed having you for our short 30 minutes of discussion on Maiden Flights, and we hope that you have some suggestions. You can reach out to us at parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com and send us a note. Let us know how we're doing, and like I said, share and like and give us a thumbs up. That helps our channel grow.
Yeah, let us know what your craziest maiden's been like. That's always sparks up some conversation.
It does, yeah.
Oh, that's a whole nother episode for me.
Yeah, craziest maidens. I've got
wound
one or
up
two
in the
stories.
ER.
Ooh, I almost wound up in the ER, but I wasn't made in the flight.
Yeah.
I've done that once. My dog wound up in the ER, but I didn't. So I hit my dog once.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we could probably spend a whole 2-hour block on maiden flight, maiden ridiculousness. So we'll save that for next time. But for now, here in Arizona, I'm Michael.
From the hills of Texas, I'm Jay.
And Shannon G, also Mesa AZ.
And we will see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.